Yes, sir.
Good morning. It's 10:16 on a Tuesday. I'm excited. We're going to be talking about sports, NFL. We're going to be talking about local sports and how young people can maybe elevate their game if they have hopes and dreams of playing in college or even on that varsity level. This is going to be an opportunity. We got Coach Reggie Rusk with Stay Recruited here in studio. I'm going to kick it on the FM and we're going to have some fun. Here we go. Good morning. This is KHEA Radio 99.5 FM. It's 10:17 on a Tuesday. We have a guest in studio. This is Kickstart. My name is Gardy. We got Coach Reggie Rusk here hanging out with us, and I'm going to ask Coach Reggie, tell me a little bit about your background. You have a really cool story. You're from this local area, right?
Yes, sir. I grew up in Lamarck and graduated from Texas City High School in 1992.
Yeah, and then after that, you played high school football there.
I played high school football, played basketball, and I ran track. So
what was your best sport?
Probably football, more than likely. Yeah, football definitely. I love basketball, but my game developed a little later. I was pretty good at it, but football definitely was my number one sport.
Yeah, so after high school sports, you had the opportunity to play at that next level. Where'd you go?
So out of high school, I had to attend a junior college because I didn't have the required courses to attend a Division I or Division II school. So I went out to San Francisco, California, played at a junior college there, got my grades together, and then I transferred to the University of Kentucky.
Yeah, is that the case for a lot of people, maybe not having their grades there and, grades up or the courses or all that other stuff, you can go play at a junior college and make that step?
Yeah, I think if many of the student athletes don't have their grades and don't have that support system to where they understand the whole process, many of them have to take that route and go to junior college, get the grades together, and then they can transfer out to bigger universities if they play at that level.
Yeah, that transition between playing at a smaller school and then jumping to Kentucky, how was that transition for you? What was different?
The transition is a little different because you're now, luckily for me, my junior college, we had a bunch of Division I talented people.
Mm-hmm.
They just had to go the junior college route. So when I transferred to Kentucky, it was a transition, but I was ready for it. I think I was one of those players that you can stick in and was going to be able to play. So it worked out well for me, but it is a big transition going from a junior college to a big Division I school.
Yeah.
Because we played in the SEC. So, we played some of the top talent in the country.
Yeah. What about like accommodations? Like even, the dorms or like, hey, I know a lot of times whenever you go to college, they'll sometimes be like, well, you get to play football. You aren't getting paid, but here's like a meal ticket. You can get your meals and stuff. How was that jumping between like dorms and food and all that?
Well, junior college is rough. So anyone who wants to go that route, it's not an easy route because you don't have the meal ticket and you don't have the money from the university to support you like you would at a Division I. Now, when people make this argument that you got a free ride, it's not free. It's tougher for a student athlete than it is a general student. A general student, you go there, you have to study hard. So do we. We have to study very hard. We do have some things set in place for us to be successful, but it is a hard grind. Practice,
working
out, study time, and then you have to go to school. So it's definitely not an easy grind for student athletes.
Yeah. What about eating right? Because I know in sports, nutrition is very key. A lot of the times, maybe what they're serving at the cafeteria isn't the healthiest. Maybe it is, and it's different for athletes, but I don't know. How about eating right, working out and trying to perform at that D1 level while on a college budget or on a college ride?
Yeah, so we have a meal table set up where, most of the athletes are able to go. The only issue with that is once I think we eat around 6, 7 o'clock somewhere pretty early in the day. So after that, big football players are going to be hungry. So that's always going to be a challenge, the eating right part of it. Yes, when you're at the team meal, it's okay, but then after that, most of those guys are going to eat fast food and whatever they can get their hands on to eat, because your parents are not there to make sure that you're eating healthy or whatever. So
yeah,
that's a challenge as well.
Was there people that were, struggling to the point where they were almost like going hungry? Like, I mean, if you're working out a lot and burning a lot of calories, you need to eat a lot. But if the meal ticket's not there, were there people struggling?
Oh yeah. Many college student athletes struggle with having money, eating. So that's a lot of times when you see kids have these issues where they kind of make a bad mistake. A lot of those mistakes come from that, and I don't think a lot of people are aware of that. So, like, when I transferred to Kentucky, I stayed in the dorms my first year, and we had restaurants on campus where our dorms were, and you were able to go and eat. But like I said, after the meal table is closed down, it's 8 o'clock at night. It's still pretty early. So those, dinner or meals that we want to eat afterwards, it was kind of tough for us to have the finances or resources to be able to eat.
Yeah. So whenever you were in college, you went to San Francisco, played some ball there, went to Kentucky and played. How was the relationship with people back here from Galveston County, from Lamarck, Texas City? Was there still, some kind of communication there, even with your family? Were there people that were proud or like jealous or saying like, oh, I could have done that? We played in high school and I was just as good as him.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I had a lot of support here at home when I went back. Now, when I left, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have all of these things. So when we went out, me and Vernon Crawford, matter of fact, went to San Francisco. And Vernon, a lot of people knew Vernon as well. When we went out to California, we didn't have money. We didn't have those resources that a lot of other kids had. Mm-hmm. So we couldn't come back home often. We basically came home during the Christmas break maybe, and that was pretty much the only time that we came home. But I think we had a lot of support. We were some of the first kids that went out and actually went to college and attended from our school. And so whenever we came back, we would always go back to the schools and speak to kids younger than us to help them and motivate them to want to attend college after us. So we had a lot of support here.
All right. So then after Kentucky, you had the opportunity to play in the NFL. Where did you play, and what is that experience like?
So I was drafted to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the 1996 draft. And, I mean, to be honest, when I was at Kentucky, I went through a lot of adversity, transferring from a junior college to a Division I school. The coach that recruited me got fired when I got there. So the only reason I chose Kentucky, we had 3-4 other guys that attended my junior college that chose to go to Kentucky as well. So I felt like, I felt comfortable with going there, playing in a big conference like the SEC. So I chose Kentucky over the USC Trojans.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I think, like I said, playing with familiar faces, playing in the SEC, when you look at the talent that you're going to face every week.
Yeah.
And if you're a competitor, you want to face the best talent in the country. And playing in the SEC, you're facing the best talent there is. So when I went there, I was always a hard worker, so I didn't anticipate not starting.
Yeah. So
when I got there, they brought me in to play one position, and they switched me a couple weeks into camp behind a fifth-year senior. And so my junior year, I went through a little adversity where I wasn't playing. I was basically playing special teams, and I wasn't too happy about it because I've never not started. And this one thing I always make sure that kids understand. you're going to go through adversity. Things are not going to go the way you plan it. You can give up and quit, or you can fight harder. You can figure out what your weaknesses are and work on those and prove everybody who doubts you wrong. And that's what I did. I watched more film. I studied the guy who started in front of me. I worked a little bit harder, and, I became the best special team player on the team my junior year. And I knew going into my senior year, I got 1 year, and I wasn't, chasing the NFL. I just wanted to be the best player that I could be.
Did you doubt your decision to pick Kentucky over USC whenever you were put in that adversity?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I looked at it because it's USC. It's USC at that time was like Alabama. Mm-hmm. It was one of the premier colleges in the country, and that was my favorite college, and I had the opportunity to go and attend there. So I was definitely questioning that decision. I've never had a problem with a coach, and when I went to Kentucky, that was the first time that I've ever had an issue with a coach. And so it was rough, but I figured that once I got on the field, they wouldn't be able to take me off, and that's ultimately what happened.
Okay. So then, senior year, you're starting what position?
I played free safety.
And did you get drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as a free safety?
So Tampa Bay saw me as a utility tool, basically. They saw that I could play free safety. At junior college, I played strong safety. But with speed and, good hips, I could play corner. So when Tampa drafted me, they drafted me as a project. They said, you're big enough if we can transfer you over to safety, but you could play corner. So when they drafted me, I played corner. And once I learned the technique, which it took me about a year to kind of develop and learn the technique that playing corner, the technique that I needed to play the corner position, but I had all the tools. So after about a year on, I played one game my rookie year at corner, and I was on practice squad. So I was just developing, learning from a lot of the older cornerbacks and working on my technique. And shout out to Todd Scott. Todd is from Galveston Ball. He was one of my mentors there when I was in Tampa. So I would always get with the older guys and just soak up all the knowledge that I could, and just trying to be a better player and fit into that system.
Yeah, you're tall for a corner. Is that true?
I mean, at the time, I was considered a pretty big corner, because I was 6 foot, 5'11", 6 foot, and back then, you had a lot of corners were like 5'9", 5'10". So if you were 6 foot and above playing corner in the NFL at that time, you were considered pretty.
That has changed. Now there's the bigger physical corners that you'll see out there. So Tampa Bay has always been known, at least I think during that time, a lot for their defense.
Right.
Yeah. Who was on the team at that time?
So I was with Warren Sapp, John Lynch, Hardy Nickerson. So that core group of with Tampa Bay at the time, I was a part of that. Mike Allstott, a lot of those legends that were created by Coach Dungy.
Yeah.
I was a part of that.
I'll still watch those Mike Allstott, highlights. They'll show up on my feed somehow, and he's like the juggernaut, from like the Marvel movies, and he just keeps going. I don't know. He lowered his head really low, and they may change the rules some, but you could not stop him. And then on NFL, like the video games, like Blitz and stuff, I'm Tampa Bay. I'm running with Mike Allstott. He's like almost like a freak of nature.
Mike Allstott was, we would sit on the sideline. Normally when the offense is up, the defense is sitting down. We're
resting.
Kind of like if there's anything we need to change. So we're usually sitting in the back. But when Mike and Warwick got together, Warwick Dunn, we would stand up and be on the sideline and witness just awesome. Yeah, it was just awesome how, you would put Mike in, he would just pound the defense, and then you put Warwick in, and he just that quickness and speed.
Did Rondé Barber play for them during that time?
Yeah. So Rondé came in my second year. So it's a funny story. It's he's going to be a Hall of Famer. But I actually beat Rondé out for the fourth corner spot my sophomore year. So I had made such an improvement from year 1 to year 2. They were only going to keep 4 corners. So you go into camp, you probably have about 15 to 20 defensive backs, corners and safeties. So they were going to only keep 4 active corners on the roster. So I ended up, beating him out and forced them to hold 5 cornerbacks on the roster. So, but, Rondé, what really made him great was he was so smart. He was able to put himself in position wherever the ball was. Rondé was always somewhere close to the ball. And when you hustle and you're smart and you make plays, you become a Hall of Famer. And I think eventually he will become a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. How much of the sport is that intelligence, being smart? I think of people like, and it's a different sport, but Dennis Rodman, undersized, but he always had a knack for, I don't know, he may have watched the way the ball spin. There's just something else. Those people they just know little things that the average person doesn't pick up.
I tell my kids all the time, it's 90% mental, 10% physical. The one thing we have to understand is I can find an athlete anywhere. There's a few kids that are just special, like one of a kind, but there's not a lot of those. Everyone else is, I can take a pick. It's the kid that's able to work hard and process things at a faster rate than the other and can forget when he's made a mistake. Because some of us, if we make a mistake, it weighs on us. So as an athlete, when things weigh on you, you can't make plays because you're thinking too much. So I think that 90% is mental. And when kids understand that the mental part of it is what gets you to the next level, I think a lot of them will be more successful.
All right, so we're talking to Coach Reggie Rusk with Stay Recruited. He is from Lamarck, played at Texas City High School, went and played at Kentucky, and also, drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, played in the NFL. I have to ask, so you talk about, making a mistake, brushing it off. So the Houston Texans, they had a game in the playoffs, and I hadn't brought this up on air yet. So one thing that I noticed, there was a play where there was a punt or a kick return, I don't know, but one of the guy on the Texans, I think he's number 17 or something, he got the ball, he ran, and then he got tackled and he fumbled. Mm-hmm. So they were showing a replay of it, and then after they were showing him, and he was kind of just clapping, just nodding his head and smiling. And I think that may have annoyed a lot of people, maybe even myself, but from what you're telling me, what he was doing was, hey, I got to brush that off. It's all smiles. It's one play. Yeah, they scored off of it, and then they scored again and again. Yeah. But I assume, is that what he was trying to do, you think?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to think, any one of us that makes a mistake, we want to forget that mistake and move on.
Right. But
the average fan, they only see, oh, he made a mistake, dang, and if our teammate makes a mistake and we come at him hard,
mm-hmm.
we could do more damage to that person than encouraging him for the next time, because most athletes are hard on themselves already.
Right.
So he just wanted to forget the play, brush it off, and try to come back and do better. We don't go out to big games like that, or any game for that matter, and want to make a mistake. That's just not the reality. So when you make a mistake, you're harder on yourself than the fans are going to be hard on you.
Yes. So what's going on with the Texans? What do you think they need to do to make – I mean, they made the playoffs. It was kind of like, are they going to make the playoffs? They did. Hey, that victory that they had, during the wild card round was awesome. They started out really hot. What do you think the deal is? How's the offense doing? The defense? Is it the coach? Is it a player? What do you think?
I think they need to find because Hopkins is, he's one of the older receivers now. He's kind of wasting his prime, kind of like Andre Johnson did.
Mm-hmm.
They have to find a complementary receiver that's going to stay healthy. on the other side of him. And I think with Watson, I think more development for him getting the ball out. See, people see the spectacular plays, but he's actually putting himself at risk every time he runs the ball, every time he gets hit, and he gets hit a lot. That's pretty detrimental to not only his health but to the whole team, because as he go, the offense goes. So I think putting another key receiver on the other side that can take the top off, that's going to stay healthy.
Yeah, because it's been Will Fuller, but he's had issues staying healthy.
He's always up and down. They have a keep working on the offensive line, but when people want to just go to another coach, that's almost as starting over. A whole new system, whole new staff. So now the players have to learn a entirely new system. You want your system to be pretty simple for them to understand, where they can go out and actually maximize the athletic talent. When we as coaches want to make everything so difficult, we want to stop everything, it makes it harder for the players to actually go out and produce the way they could if they knew it like the back of their hand, right? If it's something that I know, I'm going to go out and I'm going to be able to utilize the talent that I have. But if I'm out there thinking, football is about reaction. And if I'm out there thinking, I'm not allowing myself to play or perform at a higher level.
Okay. That's good. It's nice to see it from a different perspective, because I never really think about, hey, all of the players have to learn a new coaching style, the playbook. There's probably different personnel that's all getting changed out.
Different terminologies, different plays. And you got to think also, like, some guys are good in a system. So, like, let's take Tampa Bay. If you're a good, smart defensive player and you go and you play on a team like Tampa Bay, which is not a lot of man coverage, it's mostly a zone. So that's why Rondé Barber was able to flourish in that system. He's a smart player. He's going to be around the ball. He's not the best cover guy, but
the right place at the right time.
Right place, right time. So you run a lot of zone.
Okay.
Now, if he were to go to somewhere at the time like the Raiders, when you played the Raiders at that time, their corner's locked up man to man most of the time. So you take a guy who's not that great at man to man and you put him in a Raiders system, he's not a Hall of Fame anymore, more than likely, right?
Yeah.
So, those are things that athletes have to, really work on. Is I might be talented in this defense, but not as talented as in that defense. Just because I'm able to capitalize on what I do well.
What do you tell kids in high school that you work with and train with who maybe deal with that on the local high school level? Like, how do they kind of push through that if it's like, hey, coach, the system doesn't work for me. What do I do?
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard because sadly, and not all, so, don't say, don't come at me.
Yeah.
But a lot of times coaches have such big egos that they don't realize the talent that they have, and they don't utilize a kid for his strengths. So they just look at a kid, okay, you're tall, you're going to play quarterback. He may not fit your system as well as this kid over here. But high school is based off of, you don't have as much talent on a team, so you just have to plug and play. And I think from the youth standpoint, I work with kids all the time. And I work with kids to understand their bodies and make sure that their bodies are working efficiently. So it doesn't matter what position they play, they're able to, efficiently go to a position and play it well because they move well. And they have confidence in wherever. And I start that very early on. Because me personally, I played linebacker in high school, right? Because it was a need. It wasn't my position. It was just because of a need. So I had to play, and I was not happy about it. But in hindsight, it helped me out a lot playing linebacker, because when I went to college, I played strong safety, and it was in the box, and I was playing like a linebacker. And then when I went to Kentucky and I played free safety, because I knew how to read linemen from playing linebacker, I was able to make a lot of plays at free safety that if I wouldn't have played linebacker, I may not have been mentally capable of, adjusting to it.
Mm-hmm.
So playing at Kentucky, we, back then it was mostly running the ball. Besides playing Tennessee, because Peyton Manning was there, they threw the ball a lot. But for the most part, it was, big backs, 220, 230-pound running backs. So I led the SEC in solo tackles from free safety.
Wow, yeah.
So that's what got me noticed, but I contribute the fact that I played linebacker to me being able to tackle well.
Mm-hmm.
So kids now, they have to learn how to use their bodies efficiently, and work on skill set. That's one thing that kept me in the NFL because of skill set, because I could play cornerback, I could play safety, I could play nickel. So with the fact that I could play multiple positions and I was good on special teams, it kept me around. So that's when I really take the time out to speak with athletes about learning their bodies, learning how to work efficiently, and working skill set, not weights.
Mm-hmm.
Skill sets.
Really?
Oh, weights are important. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Definitely important. But too many coaches focus on, you got to get in the weight room. Well, you got a bunch of stiff athletes who don't stretch. They don't move well. They don't have good hips. So when a recruiter or scout comes to scout a player, have you ever heard him say he's tightening his hips?
Oh, yeah. No, I
So if you watch the combine,
okay.
and anybody out there that knows, when you watch the combine, they're like, well, he's pretty tight in his hips. Well, that's because he doesn't move well.
He's not moving.
He's not flexible, right? And that's the difference. Like when I go and see a player and I see him move well, he gets to the ball, he's instinctual, those things I can take and build on. If I got a tight athlete who thinks he's better than what he really is, I don't want to deal with him.
Okay. I have one more question about something else, and then I want to get into Stay Recruited and everything that's coming up. So growing up, you're from Lamarck, played at Texas City High School. Who was your team? Did you have a team that you followed in the NFL?
Yeah, when I was younger, I was a big Dallas Cowboy fan.
So how does that work whenever you end up playing on that level? Do you still have some Dallas Cowboy fandom? Like you play for Tampa Bay, or you have to like cut that out, because that's years of just growing up being like, hey, that's my team.
Yeah,
I always think about that.
Yeah, I was able to disconnect from that pretty easy.
Are you a Dallas Cowboys fan now? Do you have a team now?
I don't have a team now. I just basically I keep up with the teams that I played on, of course, and I just like good football.
What about players? Is there players that you're a fan of?
So I've been playing fantasy football for probably well over 10 years.
Yeah.
So when you play fantasy, it takes you out of that, because I started watching, Green Bay because I had Aaron Rodgers on my fantasy team. So I'm a fan of players more
on your
so,
fantasy team.
Yeah, more so than I was when I was playing. It's guys that you admire. Like I had the opportunity to play with Warren Moon. And I grew up watching the Oilers and, that offense. And when I first went from Tampa to Seattle, I have Trent Dilfer quarterbacking at Tampa. And then when I got to Warren Moon and in practice, it was like night and day. The balls were spot on. I mean, even if you had good coverage, he was putting the ball in the right spots, So growing up watching some of those guys, it is, overwhelming to see guys that you admired on TV, and then you're able to actually be in a locker room and play with them and converse with them and learn from them. So that's the, really nice part of, making it to that level is seeing those guys that you grew up watching and you're able to play with them.
Yeah, and then you realize, hey, I am
I'm one of those guys too. Yeah, and that is hard for me. It's hard because I've always been very humble, and I try to live my life that way, staying humble, continually to work and try to help others. So I never looked at myself as an NFL guy, and it took me a long time to even tell people that I played in the NFL. You know, I just didn't want to seem like one of those cocky athletes.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, in hindsight, you did something that many people didn't do and can't do. So you have to be proud of that fact and let people know.
Yeah, I see you got your NFLPA hat on. It's like a brotherhood.
Yeah.
What is the NFLPA?
So it's basically the retired players. They set up meet and greets and different events. We have a Houston chapter. We have about 1,500 members, retired players. So we do events like a Top Golf and, you know, try to get together. If there's information out there that, you know, that can help a retired player, you know, benefits or anything like that, that's what the NFLPA is about. Because the hardest transition is playing football since you're 8 years old. You know, you go through Pop Warner, middle school, high school, college. You play a couple years in the pros, and then all of a sudden it's over.
Mm-hmm.
And your entire life you've had that locker room, and then it's over, and you don't go out on your terms 9 times out of 10. So having these groups, it allows guys to work alongside with some of their old teammates or other guys and, you know, just stay close to the game.
Mm-hmm. Here's a question that came in. Where did you graduate from Texas City High School?
1992.
1992.
Coach Dowling was my big shout out to Coach Dowling because, you know, this is why I became a coach. Coach Dowling brought me into his office my senior year. I had no offers. I didn't have a lot of because I played linebacker, so I was out of position. And Coach Dowling saw something in me, and he said, I believe you can play at the next level. So he said, you know, I know a coach out in California. I've sent a couple players out there from my other school because this was his first year. So he didn't know what he had. We went 1-10. And he says, I see something special out of you. I think that you could go up here, play football. And I was like, yeah, whatever, you know,
Let's
thinking.
Go. Yeah.
So he sent my tape out. Back then we had the 2 VCRs and you got to make a tape. So he sent the tape out to Coach Rush in California. And Coach Rush saw one play. He didn't need a safety, you know, but he saw this one play that, you know, it was an extra point play. And he saw how hard the guy bobbles the ball and I chase him down and tackle him before he scores. So he saw that one play and he was like, if this kid plays this hard on an extra point, we'll give him a shot. You know? So that's how I ended up getting into college, was off a special teams play. So that's another thing that I really stress. Every play every play, even the plays that you don't think that's important. Anyone could be watching that one play, and it could change your life, which it did for me. And that happened to me a couple times, just how hard I played caught the attention of other people and got me opportunities, and I took advantage of those opportunities.
Do you think with social media and cameras being on, you know, in everybody's pockets, it's easier for some of these athletes or people who are truly hungry and working to get noticed?
Definitely. So I know we're going to go into Stay Recruited, but that's why I created Stay Recruited. I created Stay Recruited because I noticed a huge gap. People think they know about recruiting. No one really knows about recruiting. So because coaches are looking for different things. They have, like I told you earlier, there's an athlete on every block. You can go to any high school and there's tons and tons of athletes. What separates one athlete from another? Unless you're 6'5", you can run a 4.3. That's totally different. But most athletes are not blessed to have that size and that speed.
Mm-hmm.
How do we separate ourselves? Well, that's where I come in. I help them separate themselves by just what I just told you. How you play, being efficient, not how much you lift. Because if I'm a scout, I'm not really coming at you and saying, "Oh, how much do you bench press?" You know, when I watch your film, I'm looking to see certain things from your film. So when I train guys, that's how we train. We train as if we're in college and we're in the NFL. Even my younger kids, you can definitely see how they move. They move way more efficiently than I got some little kids that move more efficient than some older high school guys, and that's just the facts of it. So when I coach to make sure that the kids will be noticed. And then we have strategies that we work on to help them become more noticed, utilizing Instagram and Twitter. Twitter is the calling card for every coach. Every coach are on Twitter. They're on Twitter. They have handles. So we teach the kids how to use Twitter to get noticed.
That's cool, yeah.
Yeah. So using those strategies, it, puts them out there in the forefront where some other kids are kind of sitting back thinking, I'm just going to wait. And then they're seniors and nothing's come in, and coaches cannot find you. That's one myth that a lot of people don't understand. They feel like if they're good, the coaches will find them. They don't have the travel budget. If you're not close to an airport where a coach can come in and see 4 to 5 kids, if he's 30 minutes away from an airport, he can maybe see like 5 kids. If you're far from an airport, the likelihood of a coach coming to see you is slim.
Yeah.
So these are things that they have to know, and that's what we do. We go over all of these things with them.
All right. So with Stay Recruited, what ages do you work with? Is there people who are maybe not a good fit?
Well, we try to start around 7th grade, just getting them, the knowledge, get that started. But 8th grade is where we have a curriculum where 8th grade is where we start really hitting home. And then, of course, 9th grade is when everything starts. And a lot of parents, a lot of players think that, okay, we're going to wait till our junior year or whatever to start the process. It's too late. It's highly competitive now. You have 7-on-7. You have all of these other things that people are being recruited off of. So when you try to wait, you're doing yourself a disservice.
All right. So I know you always have a lot of things going on. I remember last time you came in, I think y'all were gathering, blessing some families and doing some different things. So what have y'all done, and what do you got coming up?
Yeah. So we've taken some families and for Christmas, and bought them clothes and food and a lot of different things. So we partnered with certain schools. I ended up going to HISD school district. They're more open-armed about us coming in and trying to give back. I'm working on trying to continue doing things for this area. I've talked to several other guys that Texas City and Lamarck have a lot of guys that made it out, and sadly, those guys want to come back and pour into the community and pour into the kids. But it's not as easy as us just
coming back and walking in the door.
Doing it. Yeah. It's really not that easy. And sadly, because I've always, when I first went off to college, I came back and I've always went to schools and spoke and did some of those things to try to give back. But it's not really that easy. So there's a lot of guys here that I've talked to personally, and they're willing to do things, and we're working on things now, several of us, to try to give back to the kids in this community and show them that you can make it out even if you're in a small town. There's a lot of guys who did make it.
Yeah. Ideally, what would you like to see? like if there could be that perfect relationship between, players, in the NFL currently or retired from this era that want to give back, what would you like to see, take place?
I think just coming in and being able to give advice for these kids, because at the end of the day, we have to look at it. A lot of these kids want to make it big. They see the limelight, even though it's not as the limelight is not as special as a lot of them think that it is. But that's your dream, and who are we to crush someone else's dream? But if we're able to show these kids how to take advantage of every opportunity that comes, take advantage of the fact that you have an education, let them know the real situation with college, the business of college, the business of the NFL or NBA or whatever professional sport that they dream of playing, allowing them to see that it's a business. So one of our main things is branding, right? Everything that you put on social media is a part of your brand as an athlete. So we make sure that these kids understand that your branding is important for not only your athletic career, but your career after the fact. Because what you put out there could harm you in the long run.
Yeah, it's there forever.
Right. So when we come in and we go over those things, financial literacy, branding, entrepreneurship, people who are entrepreneurs tend to think differently. So when we bring these programs and these mentoring sessions to these kids, it makes a huge difference. Mm-hmm. I have kids that I've trained since they were like 5th grade, and now they're in college or they've, getting married, and they are just great human beings, and they went through the program and they made great decisions based off of, all the talks that we've had, all the mentoring sessions that we had. So at the end of the day, that's what we want to do. We want to be able to come in and speak to the kids and just give back in that aspect. It's not about just writing checks, because writing checks, it doesn't do what we feel like is needed.
Yeah, because the money's gone, and then it's gone.
And you never know who's spending the money.
Yeah.
The money may not go to the causes. So, people may not resonate with what I'm saying, but what if another guy comes in and his story really resonates with them? My story going to junior college, every kid is not going to go to junior college. But I want to make sure that they're aware of what it's like to go to junior college and then transfer and, and the fight that it's going to take to make that happen.
Yeah. If you could give advice to, if there's a student or an athlete or even a parent that is going to go back and listen to this, or they're hearing this right now, what would you tell them?
It's a game. And we want to utilize sports as a tool to get our education, first and foremost. I hate the fact that I see so many youth leagues where there's no scholarships. There's no contracts. So let the kids have fun and let them play. I believe in training. I believe in working on your skill set, but playing football year-round, I just think it's detrimental to a young athlete. We now know, we have knowledge of what the effects of football is and what it does to retired guys. Depression, anxiety, head trauma, a lot of these things that we had no clue about 10 years ago, we know for a fact what it does to you. So be smart and make sure that your kids, if they want to pursue athletics, make sure they're smart with how they're doing it. Pro football players don't play year-round. So we have these leagues that as soon as school ball is over, they're still playing. Me personally, I just think it's a bad idea.
Yeah, but there's off-season training. In the NFL, I assume that people can do, or if somebody wants to, they're on the edge, like, hey, I got to stay in this or got to get better.
Yeah, training is different but training to enhance what you have, right? That's a different, like me going out and playing football after the season is over. Yes, you're getting experience, but you're also wearing down your body. And that's, the same thing we talked about J.J. Watt. After you experience a couple injuries, you will never be the same player again. So you want to train smart and make sure that you're capitalizing on everything from the year. Watch more film. Find out what it is that you lacked last year, and you work on those things.
Yeah. How important is film?
Film is probably just as important as practicing. So when you get to when these kids are able to go to college and some of them experience the NFL, we watch so much film because every player has tendencies of how they, what they do. Like me as a corner, if you watch me, maybe I don't play man-to-man as well. So when a quarterback has watched film on me, he knows what I don't do well. So we want to exploit what he does not do well.
Yeah.
So when I'm watching a receiver, I see these receivers, they have their hands down on, that's a false step. You're going to make a false movement. So watching film allows me to get a one-up on my opponent.
I think one of the things that I'm reminded of is Tony Romo whenever he does announcing. Whenever he first started doing commentating, you can tell he knows everything that's going on because he was like calling these plays that were going to happen before they did. He doesn't do it as much anymore because maybe they told him like, hey, stop doing that, but he'll kind of say like, oh, I wouldn't be surprised if they ran this. He'll do it like every once and again, but not the way he used to. Is that from watching film and being in those situations?
Yep.
Yeah.
And as a quarterback, you have to watch lots of film because that's what makes when you watch Peyton Manning or Brady, when you watch them, they're not the most athletic, but they're two of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game, right? It's because they're smart. They already know what the defense is doing before the ball is even snapped. So if you start tipping, if the safety starts to move over too soon, I already know what coverage they're in. So I know where I want to go with the ball. So that's basically giving you a cheat sheet or a cheat code to the defense. So when we work with athletes, that's what we're trying to teach them. Like if a receiver has his foot turned in, we know where he wants to go. He can't immediately go there because his foot is turned. So giving them those little cheat codes is really important.
Yes. So we're talking to Coach Reggie Rusk. Right now it's 11:04. This is KHEARadio.com, 99.5 FM. This is Kickstart. I'm Gardy. Coach Reggie, is there anything else you'd like to share or maybe that we haven't touched on or you want to reiterate?
Yeah, I want to we have a event coming up, and it's in March 21st. We're doing a Guinness World Record event. And I want to give a shout out to my guy, Nolan Davis. But this event, we're going to have 100 speakers. And these are people from all walks of life, entrepreneurs, athletes, you name it. They're going to come out. We're going to motivational speeches, 100 speakers, 10 different locations. And it's a Guinness World Record event that we're trying to accomplish and beat the past record.
That's cool. So how long is it going to be?
It's going to be a pretty much, all day thing, but it's in 10 locations. So it should be pretty interesting to watch.
So if it's 10 locations, is it hopping from okay, you're at one location, they're done, it starts to the next one, and it's just staggered like that? Or is it they're all going on at the same time?
They're all going on. So people can, so each speaker that's at a location, he has his or her audience there. So we're going to get those people in that location. And then Nolan will be hopping around at each location. So he's going to have a helicopter kind of taking him from one place to the other place. I just thought it was cool because, you always want to build your resume. And when I was approached to become a speaker, I'm like, so I can, get a certificate as a world record holder, along with any other things that I've done in my career. So I'm all up, all for it. And it's motivational speeches. So it's 10 people that are giving you business advice, spiritual advice, whatever advice that you're, looking for. It's going to be at this event. So
yes,
it's pretty interesting.
You're speaking?
I'm definitely speaking. Yeah.
So not only will you be like former NFL player, college football athlete, Texas City High School alumni, Guinness World Record book holder.
Exactly. Build a resume.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So
March 21st.
March 21st, and we definitely would like to see you come out there.
Hey,
that would be awesome.
I think I need more information, but that would be fun.
To you.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Well, thank you for hanging out today.
I appreciate you for inviting me. I really appreciate every time that I come.
Yes. All right. This is KHEA Radio, 99.5 FM.